Have you ever tried to build a business between flare ups? To climb the career ladder while your body is begging you to lie down? What does success look like when your ambition has to coexist with chronic illness? Welcome to Chronic Boss Unfiltered, the podcast where ambition meets women's health. I'm Lily Stairs, and I've built 2 businesses while managing 3 autoimmune conditions. Each week, I sit down with powerhouse women, entrepreneurs, leaders, and changemakers who are building the career of their dreams while navigating chronic conditions. Together, we'll help you dream big while prioritizing your health. No filters, no fluff, just raw stories from the hospital bed to the boardroom. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Chronic Boss Unfiltered. I'm your host, Lily Stairs, and today is my first ever solo episode. I am so excited to just chat one-on-one with all of you today. I thought a lot about what I wanted to start with. And as we enter this holiday season, a word has just continually been coming to mind, and that is give. Giving has been one of the most powerful forces in my life and in my career. It's really unintentionally been a major career accelerator. It's opened doors, it's connected me to extraordinary people, and it's the reason I'm here today. Giving, though, can be complicated, and I want to make sure that we address that, and we will talk about that today, because as women, we're often conditioned to overextend and to give until we break or burn out, and that is not the type of giving that we want to engage here at Chronic Boss. We want to pour from a full cup, not an empty one, and make sure that we're giving from a place of alignment and not obligation. So we'll talk about that too. But, something that I think about a lot is the phrase comes back to haunt you. And I say it a lot in my day to day. But I think that with giving, I like to think that it always comes back. And this is going to be kind of corny, but I am going to say it. I think when you give, it comes back to hug you. It's karma. It's total karma. So let's talk about it. Let's get into it. I'm going to just share with you a lot of stories that brought me to this point in my career, and also take you back to all the way to high school, just talk about some of these places where I gave from this very authentic place, and it served so many others, and it also served me and filled my cup. So let's go all the way back to high school. From the very start of my life, I've really been an advocate for others, felt this fierce need to be an advocate for my younger brother, who was relentlessly bullied for being gay. It really tore me apart to watch him and the way that he was treated. It just was so unfair and so unkind. And that is a whole nother discussion for another day when we look at the way that people who are different, people who are part of the LGBTQ community are treated. And this was in Massachusetts. We live in Massachusetts, which is supposed to be a very accepting area. And, it wasn't always. So anyways, I digress. It just tore me apart to watch that. And so I felt this need to figure out, is there a way that I can change things, that I can make it better for not only him, but for others who were being bullied? And so I started a school group called SMASH, which, fun fact, it stands for Stop Madness and Severe Hating. And one of the star football jocks came up with the name. Now, something I'm very proud of, and this was my early days of stakeholder relations, my first foray into it at 14, and little did I know what stakeholder relations was. But I knew that for this to be successful, we had to have members of all of the different cliques within the school, right? So I needed the jocks, I needed the theater kids, I needed the brainiacs and the people who were more creative. And we the cheerleaders, we had to have everyone be a part of it so that everybody who was sitting out in the audience, when we eventually would pull together an assembly, they could see themselves on the stage. And so I was able to bring over 100 people together to be a part of that group. And we had a program that ended up touring around different areas of central Massachusetts, where I went to high school, and we brought this programming there. At the time, I didn't know that this movement I was starting was going to be, and this championing of the underdog was going to be my life's path, but it really was. This was the foundation setting for that. And so that was a moment where I gave, and I helped a lot of people, and I got so much in return too, right? And it actually laid this foundation for me to be who I am today and to be successful in my career. So now I'm going to take you to another time where I gave, and this is the very direct correlation to what brings us to Chronic Boss, and that's my autoimmune diagnoses. So at the age of 19, I was lying in a hospital bed. 6 months prior, I had been diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis. It was total body to the point that I could not move. My mom was dressing me. She was feeding me. It was very scary. And as a 19-year-old who was otherwise healthy, and you think of arthritis as something your grandmother gets, it was very hard to grapple with. Then 6 months later, I was lying in the hospital bed. I had been sent in and out of the ER 3 times in one weekend. That was because everyone thought it was in my head. They kept asking me if I was happy at home, if I was happy at school, when actually my pain was so severe that even morphine wasn't touching it. A few weeks into my hospital stay, they found bleeding ulcers in my small intestine, at which point I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. So here I am. I'm sitting in this hospital bed. I'm 19 years old, and I have now been diagnosed with 2 conditions that I'm told I will live with for the rest of my life. And so I do what any other millennial would do, and I pull out my computer and I type into Google psoriatic arthritis and Crohn's disease. And what comes up but the term autoimmune? I had never heard that term in my life, and I was so angry because I saw how many people, as I started reading through, there are over 50 million Americans living with an autoimmune condition, and the numbers are just perpetually growing every year. But back then, people were not using the term autoimmune. We've seen a surge of it in the past couple of years, which is wonderful in helping to bring awareness. But at this time, nobody really was talking about it. And so literally from the hospital bed, I became an advocate. I said, something needs to change. So here I was, I'd lost 30 pounds. I was so sick. I was so sick. Like I said, I'm like being pumped with morphine. It's not doing anything really for me. And I start typing into my computer, coming up, brainstorming ideas. I'm going to start a club on campus, and I'm going to run a campaign, and I'm going to help other people who are living with these conditions. My purpose was ignited in that moment. And later, over the couple of years that I was trying to find my rhythm and get my conditions under control, which I did, I was fortunate to, after a few years, find a medicine that has kept my autoimmune conditions in remission for over a decade now, which is such a gift. But I actually started a campaign called the 50 Cents for 50 Million campaign. And we raised funds and awareness. We raised over $20,000 for the Autoimmune Association. At the time, it was the American Autoimmune Related Diseases Association. And my efforts really didn't go unnoticed. Again, this was a place I was giving from this authentic place in my heart because I wanted to create change for people like me. And I didn't want other people to go through what I had been through. And so after I ran the campaign and I began to build my professional career, maybe I was a year or two into my career, the president and CEO of the Autoimmune Association reached out to and asked me to apply to join the board. And I did join the board. And since then, I served as interim CEO of the organization, and I'm now the board chair. That experience has opened so many doors for me, being on the board of this nonprofit organization within the industry that I work in. It has helped me become a thought leader and helped me build credibility, and obviously allowed me to continue to help others on a much larger scale. And that just came from me giving from my heart because I cared and I wanted to make a difference. And it ended up leading to this door that opened and was an incredible opportunity. Another example of me giving and how it came back to me. Okay, now I'm going to talk about another fun example. This is maybe one of my favorites stories to tell. So back in 2016, I was still new. I'm my mid-20s, I think, at this point. And I was introduced to the founders of a very small health tech startup called Clara Health, and they were helping connect patients to clinical trials. This was really cool because Evan Ehrenberg and Sol Chen, they're awesome people. Evan was total brainiac, graduated high school, I think, at the age of 11, and was one of the youngest people to be pursuing his PhD at MIT. Sol was at Brown University and just one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. But they were young. I mean, they were younger than me at the time. They were early 20s. And so I got connected with them, and they barely had any money in the bank when I first started talking to them. But they were interested in having a patient advisor support their efforts. And while it was unpaid, I saw this as a great opportunity to not only give back, but also to build my credibility and continue to establish myself as a thought leader. So it happened to be my second meeting with the team. I had just quit my job at an agency 24 hours before. I had been really miserable there. It was really bad for my mental health, just a whole other story. But I made a decision that was best for me and my health at that time. And I had this meeting scheduled previously to me deciding I was leaving the company. And so I sat down we're in a pizza shop. I sat down with the founders, or one of the founders, and he's like, "Oh, what's new?" And I said, "Oh, well, I actually just quit my job. So if you happen to know anyone, I'm really interested in doing patient advocacy and health tech or biotech." And I said this knowing they didn't have any money and thinking, oh my God, no way that wasn't even going to ask them for a job. And so I got up to get my pizza was ready. I got up to get it and I saw the founder get on the phone and he talks for a minute. Then I sit down. He hangs up the phone. He said, "Okay, I just spoke to my co-founder. We want you to run our patient advocacy at Clara." And I was like, "What? Are you serious?" And it was just this dream job that I ended up landing in my lap. And it was such a surreal moment. And that job in particular, where I served as the head of patient advocacy, the company ended up getting funded by a big VC firm out in California. I moved out to California for a little while and ran their advocacy. I mean, that job has fueled my entire career. I learned so much working as the third employee at a very early stage startup. It changed the trajectory of my life in so many ways. And again, this came from this place of living from being my most authentic self and giving. Okay. So these are a few examples of the way that giving has fueled me, filled my cup, and also helped to accelerate my career. And I don't do these things strictly because they will accelerate my career. I didn't realize that would actually be a thing when I first started. I was just doing it because I cared. But what I'm sharing now is that I think this is actually a real secret sauce to help people in getting ahead in their careers. And that's not why we do it. If you're not doing it from an authentic place, then it's not going to work. So it needs to be something that you're passionate about and that you care about and that you really want to give. But I also need to make sure that we address this other side of the coin, which I mentioned at the top of this episode. And that is that as women, I don't want you to just give your time away for free. That's not what I'm telling you to do. I'm not telling you to just say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be on this board and I'm going to volunteer to do social media for this group because you will burn out. You cannot just give and give so far that you end up trying to give from an empty cup, right? And so our giving needs to from abundance when we're in a place of abundance and not depletion. It needs to be aligned. It cannot be an obligation. It needs to be aligned with who you are and what you want and what your values are. I signed up to be an advisor at Clara Health without compensation because it felt aligned with my mission. And at that time, I did see a path towards thought leadership and the ability to be a career accelerator. But I've also learned to say no. And especially as I have built my career more, I do get often asked to sit on patient advocacy boards. I have had to turn down a lot of folks just because I don't have the bandwidth to give my time and energy for free. And so I've had to weigh that out. And that's not easy. And that's where we put our boundaries into place. So I just want you to remember that. The other thing I want you to remember is that as women, we're also, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, that we are trained to trying to sharpen our edges. And we're working in chronic boss and I'm always telling women, you've got to put boundaries into place and you need to negotiate, ask for more money, manage your emotions, protect your energy at all costs. That's important. We do need that. We need those boundaries. We need to be business savvy if we want to be respected and paid fairly and have these seats at the table. We don't want to lose these, I think what tend to be more feminine traits. It doesn't mean that they are, that men don't do this, but women tend to be associated, or the feminine qualities tend to be associated with this empathy, this intuition, collaboration, generosity. And these feminine strengths are such an asset in business. And they're the ones they make us natural connectors and community builders. They're superpowers. And so if you're able to marry those two, you can do very well. So I just don't want to see women dim their giving nature because we feel like it's making us less of a strong businesswoman, because there's real power in giving. It always comes back. And when we authentically give, we make an impact, we help others, it fills our cup and it can fuel our careers. So every chapter in really my career thus far has been rooted in this want to change lives and to give. When I look at starting my first business, Patient Authentic, which is a consultancy that helps to build programs that empower and educate patients. This work, I've been doing it for almost 6 years. My business has been in place for almost 6 years. I've been working in the advocacy space for nearly 15 years. It comes from a place of wanting to help people and to give back. And I believe that has made me so successful. The authenticity that I bring to this role is why people hire me. And my ability to build genuine connections is why people hire me. Again, this is coming from a place of my authenticity and my giving. Yeah, I have the business savvy. I've got to have that too. But I've not lost sight of the importance of maintaining that. And then Chronic Boss, of course, which we'll have to have an origin story episode at some point with Chronic Boss as well. But Chronic Boss was just born out of this feeling inside of me that I knew there needed to be a space that I didn't have when I was first diagnosed as an ambitious woman who was so excited to take on the world at the start of my career and feeling like, oh my God, am I going to be able to do this? And it's the community that I wish I had. And so again, it's a place where I am giving my heart and soul, and I'm getting so much in return, just filling my cup, working with all of these other amazing women. And it's also opening doors. And I know will continue to open doors for me in my career as I continue to go. So anyways, I hope that this has inspired you to think about giving and how you can integrate giving into your business strategy, right? This should be a part of our business strategy, but it needs to be from an aligned place. And so I'm going to share a couple of reflection questions that I hope you'll maybe take some time to ask yourself. When you reflect on the past times that you've given back, what about the experience lit you up? Were you mentoring someone? Were you volunteering your skills? Were you helping a friend? How did that feel? And then are there places aligned with your skill set and career path where you could give back now? Maybe it's in advising an early stage startup. Maybe it's speaking on a panel. Maybe it's sharing your story. Maybe it is volunteering your time. If you're let's say a social media manager or project manager or data manager, and you want to go volunteer for a nonprofit that really has an important mission to you, could you go volunteer your skills? Check in with your energy before you do all this. Are you in a season where you're in a space to give, or are you feeling kind of depleted and you need to actually pour into your own self? You need to give back to yourself because that's important. We can't forget that we need to also give back to ourselves. Giving doesn't always mean that you're doing more. It's sometimes means that we're giving ourselves the grace, the rest, and the permission to just be. So don't feel like you have to just start, oh, this is another thing I need to add to my list. It can be small ways in which you're giving back, and it can be on a larger scale. But I hope this has inspired you to think about how giving can be integrated into your life and how it can positively impact your career paths. Cheers to this holiday season, to us really going forth with giving spirits, and cheers to your health, your wealth, and to giving, because it always comes back. Thanks for joining. And that's a wrap on this episode of Chronic Boss Unfiltered. But there are so many other ways we can stay connected. Head to chronicboss.com to access free resources, explore our membership, and join the community. You'll find all the links you need in the episode notes below. If this episode spoke to you, send it to a friend who gets it. Leave us a review or hit that follow button so you never miss a moment. Thank you for spending this time with us. Cheers to you, your health, and your wealth. See you next time.